We have here a scene that probably all people who've experienced leadership will have experienced at some point. Maybe not as extreme as this, but David is at the end of himself. He's completely distraught. And you can understand why. He's been on the run for years. He's had this bunch of really not very good people following him, people who are discontented with everybody else, and they're not often a good sign. And he's been hiding with the Philistines. He's been doing his best to sort of deceive them and not kill his own people, but find ways around that. And then eventually, having tried to be faithful to God all the way through, he comes back from this battle with the Philistines, probably relieved that he wasn't going to have to go into battle against Israel, because he wouldn't have known how to have got out of that one. And thinking, oh my word, my problem is solved, suddenly coming back and finding everything has been taken from him, and the men who are so fickle, they turn on him and they want to stone him to death, and he's completely distraught, not just because he's lost his own family, but because now everything he's built over the last several years seems to have fallen apart in an instant. In that moment, it says, he found strength in the Lord his God. Another way of translating that is that he encouraged himself in the Lord. He encouraged himself in the Lord. When we are at the end of ourselves, when we find things are difficult and not quite as easy as we thought they were going to be, to take a lesson from David and encourage ourselves in the Lord is the way ahead. How do you encourage yourself in God? I think you do a few things. I think the first one is you read his word and you rediscover again what he's like. That's what I find a helpful thing to do sometimes. I see in the book how faithful he is, or how kind he is, or how powerful he is. And that reminds me, oh my word, you really are God. You really are almighty. Another thing to do is to pray. That's what I'll do sometimes. I'll pray to him, Lord, I just feel totally weak here. I feel totally broken. I really just don't think I can keep going anymore. Can you help me? I'll be raw. I'll be honest. I'll just pour my heart out. And I'll ask him to help. Without prayer, often we don't get strengthened in God. And then another thing to do is to seek his will for the situation. So that's what David does. He gets the ephod out and he says, should we go? Should we go and do this, or should we go and do that? And the Lord speaks to him. Again, strengthening ourselves in God is not always simply sitting there waiting for us to feel stronger. It's asking God for the way ahead. Should I go this way, or should I go that way? How should I address this situation? How should I deal with that person? And ask him, pray for him to speak to you. He will speak. He'll speak through the Bible. He'll also maybe give you a sense in your spirit of the way ahead. And then it's to do that. And more often than not, when we do those things, we hear his word, we ask him to help us, and then we ask him for the way ahead. We look for a direction. More often than not, the situation resolves itself, and that becomes a moment we look back on and we can testify, man, God, I was in despair, and once again you were faithful.